Greetings. So let me just preface this by saying that I'm going to try to do more videos, make it a little bit more timely. You know, I don't know that waiting 3 weeks between videos is a way to get any kind of audience. So I'm going to try. I've got an idea of the types of things I want to, talk about. And let's just see how that goes. And I have a feeling that some of these are going to be things that other people who at least may be watching this, or maybe they're watching something else without necessarily watching me, are going to agree with me. So let's find out. So anyway, the job that I have these days is I deliver pharmaceuticals to patients who are basically in the Syracuse area. Now, I go further. So I probably go, 15 minutes or 15 minutes in one direction and then 20 minutes on the total other side of this. And I average between 60 to 70 miles a day going on that, doing like that. And one of the things that you discover early on is that when I'm putting in everything that says how far I'm going, the numbers kind of get changed a little bit. So I'm not making tons of money on that part. I average between $32 to every once in a while $45 and $50, but that's rare. So anyway, when I was first doing this job, I had totally forgotten most of the areas of the Syracuse area, because when I was much younger, like when I was in the 80s and the mid 90s, I knew the entire area. I knew all the street names. I knew all the downtown areas. I knew the outskirts. I just pretty much knew everything in this area. Then I started traveling all over the country. And then when that kind of thing was over, then I had to take care of my mother who had dementia. And it was just a mess. So I needed this job, and I found this job. I was very lucky to get it, but I got it. And the first day I went out with this other guy, because he drives Mondays and Tuesdays, and he's driving me to some areas, and some of it looked familiar, but because I hadn't left where I live, which is in the suburbs, I had no idea where I was going. And so the first week was a mess. I was going all over the place, but I just didn't have a routine. And because I'm a numbers guy, what I finally did is I went online. I found an image of all the zip codes within the Syracuse area. And then I decided to do a thing where I was going to track all these things on, you can't really see that, but it's got lines. And so I set it up by zip code, and that was easy enough to do, so that I now had a routine. So I would start with the zip codes that were in the area where I started out work, and then I just kind of did it around. Every once in a while, if I was going outside of the city, but still within the city limits, then I would do some of those. I had to learn certain other things. For instance, there's one place that I deliver that's outside, but if I wait until 1 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm not going anywhere, because that's when everyone else is getting out of work, and there's just no way to get out of this neighborhood that she lived in. I dealt with those kinds of things. So anyway, I figured that out. And one of the things that I was doing was I started out by listening to a lot of recorded books. And that's something that I did when I was traveling. We go to the library, take these books out of the library, come home, convert them from, CDs, every once in a while cassettes, which was really slow. But then I would, do those, turn them into MP3 files, and then I would listen to those. And that's what I started doing with this. And I had some recorded books already at home, and so I would listen to those things. And then I started to realize, I'm running out of this really quick. And so I asked someone about it, and she said, hey, you should try Libby. I didn't know what Libby was, so I looked it up, and it turns out that if you have some kind of library card or whatever, then you can sign up for Libby. I did that. And it turns out that the favorite books that I had and the favorite authors that I had, I pretty much gone through all of that stuff at my library. And I thought, well, maybe I can get something from other libraries. Turns out that doesn't necessarily work even in this area. So I live in a town of, town of clay, but the city of Liverpool, and you had the public library in Liverpool, but they had one in North Syracuse, they had one in Cicero, and they had one in other places, but I couldn't get library cards for those people. So therefore, I was running out of that to listen to. And so then I tried more music. I just couldn't concentrate on where I was going and listening to this music. I needed something else. And what I decided to try to do at that point was I said, well, maybe I can find something on YouTube, because I was getting more interested in YouTube. I don't watch TV. I don't have any channels that I watch. I don't watch almost any sports, although starting next week, I'm assuming I'm going to be watching the Knicks because I live in New York. It's either the Knicks or the Lakers. If they're not in the finals, I'm not watching. But the Knicks are in the finals. I'm going to take my shot. So I started watching YouTube videos and I said, hey, wait a minute. I have a program. I'm not going to tell y'all what the program is, at least not right now. Maybe someday I will. So anyway, I started to find out that I could download links, or I could download videos by using these links, program that I found out, and then I could convert them into MP3 files, and then I could listen to those on the phone, and that became a great obsession with me. So now I had stories that I could listen to, or news stories, or history, or all these different kinds of things, and I was enjoying that a lot. But I started to find out, you know what? I would have to go back really far to try to find some things like that. Maybe there's something else I can find. And just one night on a fluke, I was going through YouTube and I came across these different types of stories. Now, initially, they were like considered revenge stories, or life stories, or war stories, or just different kinds of stories. And it took me a while before, maybe I think I'll say 5 months ago, I learned that there was a new term. It's called AI slop. And in essence, AI slop basically says that you have a narrator, or maybe you have a fake narrator, and there's certain types of the people who are narrating the stories. For instance, some of the stories you hear, they may be about women, but it's a man's voice doing it. And sometimes it's supposed to be a man's story, but it's women talking about it. And everything kind of starts the same at a certain point, where they begin telling you the story, and they say, oh, by the way, let me tell you my name. My name is Jennifer, and I'm 37 years old. And if you like this kind of story, please subscribe and hit the link, and that way we can put out more content, and the algorithm works well, and thank you for that. And then they go on with this story. And the thing about these stories is that, like I said, there's always these same patterns, where if someone is, the person who's supposed to be telling a story, they use certain terminology that's not anything that you will ever hear from somebody that you live around the same area. Nobody in my life talks the way that these things do. But there's tons of these stories. And not only just regular stories. For instance, they have found that some of the famous people in this world have YouTube channels. And so they have certain topics. My favorite is Neil deGrasse Tyson. Love Neil deGrasse Tyson. I've seen him live 3 times here in the Syracuse area. And he's got a whole bunch of things. He's got a YouTube channel called Star Talk. And he's got a guy there who works with him. He's a professional comedian. So, that works out kind of well. what happens is that Neil deGrasse Tyson is on a bunch of different channels, but most of the time he's not with anybody. And he's kind of sitting there, but you're looking and saying, okay, that's almost his voice, but that doesn't quite work. And the camera changes all these different views, and he's always looking in the same direction. And sometimes it's over here, and then sometimes it's over there. You know, I know that's not him. And some of the things that he says in there may be things that he had his own way of saying that, but in these kind of things, that's not him saying it. So I still listen to that because I know it's him. I know the topic. I love those topics. And so I will do that. There's people who are actors who I know about. There's older YouTube people who are now getting back on, and they're doing it, and all these different interviews and whatever. And right now on my smartphone, I have about 350 items that I can listen to. And I can put these things together all at one time so that if I wanted to do it tonight, okay, I'm not doing it tonight because it's late, but if I wanted to, go through a bunch of these tomorrow, say like noon or 1 o'clock, I could find tons of these things. And then I can convert them into MP3s, and then I move it to the phone. And anything that I know that I've already listened to or whatever, I know how to track it because, I'm a numbers kind of person. So I can go in and I can delete the ones that I know that I've already listened to, get rid of those. And then when I add new stories, everything is in alphabetical order. So if I'm on letter G, for instance, but I, download a bunch of them into my phone, and they either have the quotation marks or they get at least the F, I know, okay, I'm not starting with those. I'm starting with the G's and I'm going down further. It works well for me. And I'm entertained. Some of it is kind of stupid because one of the things I've also noticed is that every once in a while, you will have 5 versions of the exact same story. Sometimes it's always, a story that has a woman's voice. Sometimes it's a story that has all men's voices. Or sometimes they just change it up a little bit. And they all tell you the name and how old they are. And they ask you to comment on it and share. How old are you? Where are you living? Now we're going to get back to the story. I probably need to ask people if they'll subscribe to the channel. I've never even thought about that. So maybe that's something I need to do at a point. I don't know. But the AI slop, sometimes it's not even a real voice. Sometimes it's going really, really fast. Sometimes it repeats itself. I don't know. But it's on there. But here's something else. YouTube is finally getting to a point where they're starting to delete some of those things. Not a bunch, but some of them. Because at a certain point, maybe some people, I'm going to say Neil deGrasse Tyson, but he's not doing it. But he could decide, hey, you know what? That's copyright infringement. And I'm going to ask YouTube to get rid of those. But a lot of those people don't do it because they don't know that those things are out there. They're just doing their own thing. So that's one thing. And like I said, people are stealing their voices and they're doing it. I don't trust AI. I am one of those people. I don't think it's my age. Initially, I was saying it's me. I'm older. I don't want to deal with AI. But the truth of the matter is that I worry that some of my stuff, and that's not just videos. I have a lot of stuff online, and I could have somebody stealing my thing. I've had like 8 or 9 blogs over all these years, and I have 2 blogs right now. One of them I started in 2006, and the other one I started in 2007, different subjects. But each one of those has about 3,000 articles on them. So at some point, someone could come over and take my stuff and put it on their blog, or they can take it and moderate or move it around somehow, and now they're going to use that. I don't know if they're doing that because I haven't checked. And I'm saying that, and that's not quite accurate. I did discover back in 2012 and 2013 that there were people who were stealing my stuff and putting it on their websites. And I can't remember what the site was called where you could check to see if someone was stealing your stuff. And then you could do a cease and desist. And if you couldn't, then you could do some kind of strike. I can't remember the name of the company, but you could put it on there, and then they would hit their websites and they would shut their websites down. And these were people in other countries. So at least I knew that could happen, but I'm just, not really keeping up with all those blogs anymore. So that's, not anything I look at, but that still happens to a lot of people. And I have the copyright system, whenever I do a new blog post, I then, post everything down there so I can always track, if I need to, the date that I put it on there, and it got the, the C thing in the middle. I can do that. But I think that if you're doing something for yourself and you're not looking to steal it from somebody else, and you're just listening like what I'm doing, because I can't watch videos while I'm driving. I don't want to take any kind of chance of me hitting anybody else. So I don't want that to happen. But if you're listening, fine. I hope you're not stealing something from someone. Like I said, I'm not stealing stuff from somebody else. I do listen to it. And if I really liked it a lot, then I will come home and then I will go to that YouTube channel and I will give it the like. It's got the up and the down, and I will click the up and move on. So, when I'm listening to it in the car and I know it's going to be, the slop, because, they go out differently. But when I hear that kind of thing, sometimes I will just move on to the next thing because I don't need to hear the same story just because it has a different voice or anything like that. But I wanted to put it out there. I wanted to know if some of you are coming across certain things and saying, hey, how come that doesn't sound right? And, I've seen some of those people on other YouTube channels and platforms, or maybe on TV or whatever. If it doesn't sound right, it's probably what they're calling AI slop. I wish I'd come up with that word. I love that word. But still, it's just something that's out there. And just looking to see. I called stories because that's one of the things I talked about, the Libby, the writing. By the way, if a good book comes up and I get notified by using Libby, it comes up, say, hey, your library now has this and you can download this. Then I can get my book and then I can listen to that for a while. And now I can still put a whole bunch of other, stories together so that when I'm done with the book, I can get back to the other thing. I love that. I love YouTube watching. I don't know. I haven't decided overall how much I love YouTube as far as me doing something. But maybe if I get more views, we'll see how that goes. And AI slop. I don't like that. I worry all the time that there's going to be people who are going to steal my content. I was talking to a friend of mine whose name also happens to be Mitch, by the way. And he loves using AI because he likes to develop certain types of things, but he's not stealing what other people are doing. He comes up with a concept and then he uses something. I'm not really sure which one it is, where he runs it through that to see what it will say about what he's created. And then he goes on with life. I'm not doing it. I don't want to do it. We've all heard about these data centers that are going on right now. And by the way, earlier today, I was watching a video where they were saying that there's a lot of businesses who are all of a sudden shutting down their data centers because they're finding out that it costs them a lot more to have these things than trying to get all this stuff that they think they can put it out there and make money from it. So they're losing money. Some of these companies, these gigantic companies, are losing somewhere between $10 and $50 million a month. And they get what they deserve. That's my thought. Anyway, my name's Mitch. I've talked about some things here. I'd like to know what your thought is on this video. Let me know what you think about AI slop. Some of y'all know. And Notice the video is bright. I don't look so bad this time. First time in a couple of months. Anyway, I wish you all a wonderful night. You take care of yourselves.